This presentation is on an analysis of United States immigration statistics from 1820 to 2021. I chose the year 1820 to start with, just because it was the first time that the number of immigrants coming into the country was recorded since the country was founded, and 2021 to end because it was the last full year of statistics. So in this presentation, I will be talking about the history and demographics of immigration in the United States, and I will also be going through the different classifications and restrictions of immigrants in the modern day. So starting off with the first wave of immigration, these were immigrants coming after the American Revolution until around 1850, and they were mainly Irish and German. And the main cause of Irish immigration was due to the potato famine during the 1840s. So that first wave from 1820 to 1849, the majority of people were coming from Europe. And the exact number is 1,891,894 people. So within that 30-year time frame. From Asia, there were 210 people. From the Americas, so North America, South America, Central America, 92,094 people came to the United States, and Africa, 152 people. Now, this is excluding enslaved people, because in 1820, bringing enslaved people into the country was banned by Congress. In Oceania, 6 people came. Yes, 6 people in those 30 years. But there's also another group of people that are not specified. And so this comes from either people that we know came into the country, but records of where they came from have been lost to time, or that they just slipped through the cracks, but we do have a recorded number for them. So, for not specified during this time period, there were 109,864. So the second wave started with the California Gold Rush in 1848 and the building of the Transcontinental Railroad in 1862, which attracted a lot of Chinese immigrants who hoped to find jobs or to strike it rich. In the 1870s as well, Germany and Great Britain were experiencing economic prosperity that the United States was not, which discouraged people from coming to America from Europe. In Europe during those years, about 6,755,056 people came to the United States. Asia, 224,559 people came to the United States. From the Americas, 560,517 people came. From Africa, 1,003 people came. From Oceania, 9,311 people came. And for not specified, 87,506 people were accounted for. The third wave lasted from 1880 to 1920. In 1882, immigration from China, specifically laborers, ended after Congress passed the Chinese Exclusion Act, which essentially made it illegal for all ethnic Chinese people to enter the country. This excluded merchants, teachers, students, travelers, and diplomats, however. What the act also did was it made it increasingly difficult for Chinese residents to leave and then re-enter the country because of the amount of paperwork that they had to deal with, and sometimes they would still be denied even if they did have all the paperwork. So from Europe during this time, 20,773,075 people immigrated. From Asia, it was 702,633 people. From the Americas, 1,917,022 people. From Africa, 16,393 people. From Oceania, 34,636 people. And not specified, 48,871 people. The time period from 1920 to 1964 are excluded from the third and fourth waves because of the Great Depression and World War II. It's obviously not very attractive to move to a new country that's in the midst of an economic downturn or is fighting a war. Another reason for the lack of immigration was because of the Emergency Quota Act of 1921. It limited the number of immigrants from any country to 3% of the number of residents from that country living in the U.S. by the time of the 1910 census. It sounds a little bit confusing, but I'll give an example. So let's say in the 1910 census, it was recorded that 550,000 immigrants were from Italy and were living in the U.S. So what the government would do is multiply 3% or 0.03 by 550,000, which would result in 16,500. So each year from 1920 onward, the allowed number of Italian immigrants would not be able to exceed 16,500. And the government purposely enacted this legislation to hinder the amount of immigrants from Southern and Eastern Europe, as their numbers in 1910 were minute compared to Northern Europe. The fourth wave occurs after 1965. In 1965, President Johnson signed the Immigration and Nationality Act, which removed federal quotas based on nationality, and instead they were replaced by quotas based on hemisphere. Immediately, immigrants from Asia and Africa skyrocketed. In 1996, the Illegal Immigration Reform and Responsibility Act cracked down on illegal immigration, and it placed strict restrictions on reapplying for legal entry after overstaying your visa. Critics of the legislation say that the government overly militarized the border and restricted due process rights. And because of this, Hispanic people began to be targeted because of this act. For the first time in each of these waves, European immigration wasn't the highest. From Europe, 6,366,136 people came. From Asia, 15,094,560 people came. From the Americas, 20,860,688 people came. From Africa, 2,522,762 people came. From Oceania, 296,000 people, from Oceania, 296,793 people came. And for not specified, 721,030 people came. It's very important that we acknowledge the contributions that immigrants have made on the United States. Not only did they change our demographics, they brought their languages, their food, and their culture.